All right, so last one I want to do is skyboxes and reflection probes. So let me get a share screen going here. Okay, so first of all, here's our scene uh, with the default skybox. And what's kind of interesting here, uh, I have a tool uh, for the skybox, um, which is the following. The default skybox here. The default skybox, I may have fiddled a little bit with this, but a couple of things are happening here. The atmospheric thickness is changing. The sun size is changing. I'm fiddling with some of the uh, parameters of the default skybox, using uh, a script that we've written here um, called Skydome script. This is an adaptation of a tool that I got from the Unity store from back in Unity 3 or 4. And I've adapted it for the procedural skybox. What's nice about this is that you can set the latitude and longitude of the spot on the planet that you want the light to occur. So the Julian date here at 150 is sometime in June. Longitude is 0, which is Greenwich, England, and the latitude is 45, which kind of corresponds to where we are. And you'll notice that there are things for the speed factor and what the time is and the day-night color of the light. Some intensities, minimum and maximum points, whether there's fog or not, and ambient intensity. So these are all things that you can use to make a realistic day-night cycle that corresponds to a specific longitude, latitude, and day of the year within your skybox. If I set this to a Julian date of 0 or 1, that would be January. We'd have real short days like we have here in Maine. Setting it to the summer, we have real long days like we have here in Maine. So that's the default skybox. And where's the sun? There's the sun going down and setting. I can turn the light off with the eye. So that turned the light off. So now we're just picking up the no light. And the light fades to black as it goes below the horizon, making for a very realistic kind of sunset. And there are Q and E keys that slow down and speed up the day cycle, and H and J will start and stop the day cycle. So that's the default skybox here with the different cubes. Now, you remember that I said that back when we were talking about lights, I talked about ambient light and how it comes from the sky. So our ambient colors here are really a reflection of what the sky color is. And so now if I switch the skybox with the L key, it will move forward to a different skybox. This is the dawn till dusk skybox. And I've bothered to align the sunlight. I can turn it on and off with the eye. I've bothered to align the sunlight with the position on the skybox of the bright sunny spot. So I'm actually adding to the skybox with that light. The other thing you can see here is that I've added a light flare. This funny shaped thing is the kind of artifact that you get from a camera lens. It's internal reflections within the lenses of the camera. that make these artifacts that are cinematic. They're not real in the sense that we see them in the real world, but they're things that we're familiar with from movies and other things that are shot uh, through lenses. And there's a bit of sparkle there in the center. You also notice that the lighting changed from this skybox to this skybox. We went from having everything be kind of bright white to a bluish tinge that kind of reflects the color of my sky here that I have in this world. So remember, the ambient light comes from a source, the skybox. And as I switch through among a number of different skyboxes, that ambient lighting changes to reflect the light that's coming from the sky. Now, I want to move on to the next scene here, where we're looking at a metallic object. So this is a shiny material. All I've done is set the metallicness all the way up on it and made it shiny in the material. We'll talk about materials in a little bit. But I'm getting a nice reflection of the skybox here, including lens flares and so forth. Notice I'm not seeing reflections of any of the cubes there. And that's because there are no probes here. And with no probes, the ambient light just gets its information from the skybox. It only reflects the skybox. But if I move on to the next scene where I have a probe, and the probe happens to be right where my character is standing, I can now look around and I'm seeing the reflection of these things behind me. Looking away from the sun, I can now see the reflection of the sun in my shiny object. Now, a problem with this is that if I walk outside, if I walk around, because there's only one probe and it's static, it doesn't pick up, it doesn't change because the probe is not changing. There, I can actually see my character, see myself reflected, because the probe is right here, right where I initially started. And these reflection probes only have a limited range of influence. So if I step outside the box, I'm now outside the range of that probe. And so I'm no longer picking up reflection from that probe. I'm only getting the skybox. I'm not seeing behind me the reflection of the cube. If I go back in there, A, I can see myself, and B, things aren't changing. So, and let me pause here for a second and show you that probe. Here's that reflection probe. And among its settings are the range, and I've set this box around it, which is the range of influence of that reflection probe. Objects inside there will pick up from the reflection probe. Objects outside it don't. And that's the reflection probe. So continuing on here, I'm going to move to the next scene. There are a couple of different probes. There's a kind of spherical probe and there's a box probe. They're a little different in how the probe takes a picture. The box probe takes 6 pictures up, down, left, right, forward, back, whereas the default probe takes a global picture around it, a single picture that wraps it. But here I've, and you can also specify the number of bounces that the light will take. So the light here is taking more than one bounce. So now I can see the shiny object has reflections in it as myself. If you remember back here with a single probe, my object was black. That's because there was only one bounce. So I was seeing a reflection off the shiny object, but I wasn't seeing the reflection off my character, who is a shiny object. So here's a situation with multiple probes. And again, let me pause so that we can look at these different probes. Now there are 16 different probes scattered around throughout the scene. And each of these has a range. So each one has a range. And I'm going to pick up reflections from the nearest probe. And this is going to result in some weird looking stuff because when I'm inside one probe area, I'm seeing its picture, but as I move to another, I'm now picking up the probe in this other one. So this makes for kind of less than satisfactory. And of course, if I go out here, now nothing makes sense because I'm way outside the influence of these different probes. One that makes more sense, but actually costs a bit more, is a carried probe. So in this case, I've put the probe inside my character. So the probe is inside my character. And so now as I walk out here, I'm carrying the probe with me. So I'm seeing the stuff behind me reflected in the probe. If I were to put the probe inside the sphere, I would also see the reflection of my character. I haven't done that. The probe is inside my character. This, I believe, is a little more expensive in that the probe has to continually resample, whereas the other ones, the probes could just sample once since the scene itself was not changing. Now, here's a kind of a more traditional shiny material. This is our LERP's character with shiny material on him, and I've put a carried probe in there, so it's adjusting for him. But you can see the various artifacts don't show up so pronouncedly with an irregularly shaped object as I do with a perfectly round ball. And I think there's one other scene here where Lerps is animated, so he's kind of walking around, and I don't believe you can move this character. And I think that's all of the scenes. Oh, here's a shiny glass version of Lerps that you can see through, but he is still picking up all the various reflections of the different skyboxes that I've got here. And now we're back to the skybox scene. So I'll stop that. I'll stop sharing. And I will end recording and see you all in class. Bye.